Welcome to this first workshop of the day, and a really, really warm welcome to you, beautiful Annika Wiklund-Engblom. Annika, she, amongst a lot of other things, she has a doctoral degree in educational psychology, and she also has been doing different projects in the field of the digital field, digital relation, IT, and storytelling, and then the educational field. And now she's going to have or lead the workshop with the great name Salutogenic Co-Creative Storytelling for Nature Connection, Sustainability and Resilience. It's nice to meet you, and I'm really eager, excited to learn more about this and the fairy trails. So Annika, I'll give you the floor.
Thank you very much. Well, really nice to be here, and I've been so amazed by the talk so far. So I hope that my workshop will also gain some insights in how you can use nature, for instance, for the same purpose as the rest of this conference. Brief view of the content. I'll describe my project that I'm working for, which is called Naturkraft, Empowered by Nature, and the fairy trails that I will talk about. I will talk about the objectives of them, the theories behind them, and the design process of them. And then you will have activity to do with an object from nature. Just a hint now, grab an object somewhere around you that has some nature connection, that this is some material from nature, a stone or a piece of grass or maybe a necklace with something diamond on it, anything that has a connection to nature. We will use that in an activity. So you know, then you're prepared. Then we do an activity also with story making, and if we have time, you can listen to a part of a fairy tale that I actually translated to English. And it's a fast translation, but anyway, you have to bear with me there. So that's the content, and I'll start with a story. This was a normal Tuesday, and I got a phone call. And you know, sometimes when you get a phone call, your body just reacts to it, and I knew that something was trouble. And I saw it was my brother, and the phone call was about my dad had just died. They had found him dead in the apartment, and I was in shock, and I didn't know what to do. You know, it's just chaos when these things happen. And I did what was the most natural to me. I grabbed my jacket and I walked into the forest. And I walked and walked maybe for 4 or 5 hours. And I don't really have many memories from the walk. But one thing I remember, and it was this place that I came to on the path where a lot of trees had fallen. There had been a storm a few weeks earlier, and a lot of trees had fallen, and it was really disaster in many places in the forest. And on this path there was huge trees just falling all over the place, and I stopped because in a way I just felt comforted by this chaos. And I didn't realize it then, but I realized it afterwards, that the chaos just mirrored the chaos inside myself at that moment. So the symbols from the nature, the pieces of nature around me, sort of gave me something that was very therapeutic at this moment. Many months afterwards, I realized that this story was actually a really good story to describe the objective of the project that I was working for, because it's about bringing people into nature for their own sustainability, but also for the sustainability of nature. The pediatrician Winnicott, he said that he talked a lot about play. He was a psychoanalytical person, and he talked a lot about how play is really important for our development. He also said that the illusory play that we do in nature is really important in our development, because later in life we can use that sort of illusionary play as symbols to help us to become resilient for the disillusionment that we will all meet later in life in crisis that we face. And myself relate to that very much afterwards. Not in the moment, but afterwards I could see how this was really an important part that had helped me come through my crisis at that moment. So from that to the aims of the project that I'm working for, Naturkraft, which is then in English about empowered by nature. And it's about strengthening habits that are beneficial for health and give families increased opportunities to meet everyday challenges by providing them with new ways of being active together in nature. So it was about designing a new concept for lowering the thresholds for families to go together out in nature and play together. The background to the project is all about these positive effects that nature has on us, about how it's good for our physical health and recovery and vitality, energy, mental health, anything. It is actually, nature is medicine without side effects, they say. It also increases our communicative ability, especially for children. They've seen that when families go out in nature, children get more talk time than they do at home. So nature strengthens family relations. Also, it is really good for increasing our positive emotions, which is very important in life. It develops our self-efficacy, our belief in ourselves that we are capable of doing things. And it also teaches about evaluating risk and how to collaborate and all of these strengths that we need in life. So nature more or less makes us resilient in that sense. And also being in nature increases our nature connectedness, and that's what we want in the project. It increases our empathic ability, both towards each other but also towards nature and animals. The thesis is that those who feel connected to nature protects nature, and that's important, of course. But also nature connects us to something bigger, and this in itself creates a sustainable life. So the plan then for Naturkraft was to create group events. But then the pandemic hit and we could no longer organize group events with people. In that instant, we realized that we have to rethink our project and how can we get families out in nature. And of course, this became even more important through the pandemic when people couldn't see each other, but nature was still there. So in a way, our project got a real boost from people realizing the importance of nature. But what we did then was to start to think, how can we support independent activities for people and create open events where groups didn't have to gather, but people could go somewhere and take part of something, be part of an event, although not in the same time maybe. And that's when I tried out to make a story about a little bunny. I wrote this in 10 chapters, with each chapter having nudges for them to become interactive in nature and be part of the story. And this was really well received. So we thought, well, maybe this is something that can be explored further. We also wanted to be interactive. So the instructions were that the families make the story their own through playfulness and let their imagination then flow and include nature in the story, and then to adapt activities to what is available in the surroundings, and then also be able to record an audio message to the little bunny and tell them about or tell her about the experiences on the fairy trail, so they could call and send a message to us then about their experience. So that was the first pilot, and I'm part of several storytelling groups here in Finland, and there I met Malin, who is working for the national broadcasting company which has the Swedish-speaking children's shows. So she's one of the main hosts for Boklubben, which is the Swedish-speaking children's show here. And they have this audio podcast where she reads fairy tales, and they have fairy tales from all over the world which she has read, and these are online available for everybody on Yle nrk.fi, which is the National Broadcasting Company's online service. So we thought, well, we have the same target group, children with families, and maybe we could do something together around these fairy tales and innovate around it and make it more public in a larger sense. So we tried the pictures you see here, where we had tried some live dramatization in the forest, and then we have tried and seen how we can include the children with activities and try out the storyline of this Professor Vilda Vida, which I will tell more about. We felt that this was something that actually was worth going ahead with. So at this point we also had 4 interns in our project, students, and we included them also to have these fairy tale workshops to create the story world around these characters that we invented, and how these can then be the kind of characters that children want to identify with and be nudged by to become active in nature and find that nature connection. The objectives of the fairy trails are, first of all, to inspire people, families and children, to want to go out in nature, but also to empower them to do it on their own, that they feel it's some sort of the meaning making around it feels like something that they want to do and feel it's a positive experience. The objective is also around this nature connection that I said, that the purpose of the project is to increase people's nature connection, both for their own and the world's sustainability. And also, when I said already about the resilience factor, that nature actually is very important for us. And at this point in time, a lot of people live in cities and they lose the connection to nature, and that makes them less resilient for all sorts of things in life. And then sustainability. And here is also, for instance, in the Nordic countries where we have the right of public access. We wanted to include this in the fairy trails so we could teach children and give parents the opportunity to discuss what is the right of public access and which kinds of responsibilities and affordances does it give us actually. So those were the objectives. Then we had a lot of theories to sort of lean against, and the background theories that we have used a lot. For instance, Bruno Bettelheim's book, The Uses of Enchantment, is a really nice one. And I studied it a long time ago, but it never left my mind. You know, it's one of these books that you read and actually it stays with you. And I remember, for instance, this example of a boy who was really keen on the story about Rapunzel, the one with the long hair. And at one point in the analysis that Bruno Bettelheim did, he was very identifying with the princess. But after a while he moved over and then he started to identify with the witch. And this shows that how the characters can relate to developmental stages in our lives. When we grow, we sort of evolve in how we identify with the characters. And this also is the way of how to use these characters to assist in our socio-emotional development and our development as human beings. And I don't think this is something that is just for children. It's throughout our whole life, and how we can practice and actually how we wanted the fairy trails to be tools for practicing the socio-emotional development in many ways. So that was one theory. Then relates to this comes also the archetypes and how you can use these, both the light attributes and the shadow attributes in these characters to sort of show how you can be a person, but you can go from being projecting the shadow attributes and then you can transform into something else. And this gives hope, I think. And we wanted to explore how archetypes could then be used also in these fairy trails to sort of build the story. So we thought a lot about the characters and Then we have this positive psychology, and that's all about how to flourish in life and which factors can you design into your life in order to flourish as a person, and which are the character strengths that you can sort of practice to become a better person, have a better life throughout your development as well. So based on this Seligman's and Peterson's research, these are the sort of the character strengths that they've found throughout the world, which more or less culturally, this is a global thing. So these we also wanted to sort of put into the fairy trails to show how you can find your strengths and sort of use them to solve problems, to transform and to realize your own strengths. And also mindsets for learning. I think it's a very interesting aspect of how you can design things and twist it so that instead of having these limited beliefs of your abilities, then you can shift the attitudes into a growth mindset where you see how failure can be an opportunity to grow, and knowing that if you don't know something, it's not a stop. Challenges help you grow. And so these are theories, and also mindfulness is one that there's been a lot of research around, how you can use mindfulness for enhancing health and benefits for life. And these are also connected to the activities that we will make, but also the attitudes. You can see how they relate also to, for instance, the strengths and other theories. But these are sort of the background theories that we have used and seen how we can implement in ways that enhances this psychological aspect of the fairy trails. And then to the design of the fairy trails, we wanted to evoke curiosity and engagement. We wanted to make the children, wonder, what is this? But I want to get involved, and to create mysteries and challenges and humor and controversial characters which could, be identified with in different ways, and then also to sort of open this magical world of spells and magic and amulets and magical wands and stuff like that, and also to include co-creation, so they felt part of the process and felt that they were empowered to be part of the story in that sense. Also, we wanted to make it transmedial, since it had to be open events. We wanted to include all kinds of media-based material that we could. So in that sense, you see the QR code there up in the corner on the flyer. That's the connected then to the audio version, which Malin was reading, which you could find then on Yle Arenan, yle.fi. And then the text was provided on the flyers with some pictures. Transmedia is more or less about how a message, flows through different mediums. And here we see also the children as part of this media process, because it's their imagination and the nature around them that also be mediums for the message, whatever that is. And the co-creation also, where they become part of the story, becomes this transmedia process. And finally the connection that is hopefully connection both to the people that are with them, but also to nature and to the story. A sense of coherence is a theory that I work for Folkhälsan, you can see the name there. This is a theory they have adopted for all the work that is done in Folkhälsan. It's an organization to increase people's health, and it's a non-profit organization in Finland. The theory of the sense of coherence, it's for something to make people feel or flourish in life, sort of like the positive psychology, but from the other perspective, that you need something to be comprehensible, that it makes sense to do it, that it's meaningful for you, it's worth it, and it's manageable. I know what it takes to do it. But also the belongingness, that I feel part of something, and that gives this sense of coherence. And that's very important for motivation and being part of something. So that was also in everything, every choices that we made. For the activities also, we felt that the embodied experience was very important for understanding nature, because experiencing with your body is a way to sort of connect and get this inner connection for something to be important to you. Here in the activities we wanted to include all, you know, sounds and sight and smell and taste and touch, but also the proprioceptive of you know, how the body is in the environment, the balance, the interactivity of it. And the interception then is then, you know, how you experience your inner being, your everything from your hunger to your emotions to whatever, that you can explore that in that experience. So here's where mindfulness also comes in, where you can be triggered to stop and feel and embrace the embodied experience of the moment. So that was the goal. And also to use the body symbolically and, you know, for instance, fly like a bird and sort of become part of nature in that sense, and create with your body and with each other. But also to evolve our senses. And if some of you are familiar with forest bathing, here we talk about exploring the magical sense and the heart sense and the radar sense. And this is very much about mindfulness as well, you know, stopping the cognitive, more feeling into your body and having the sense of exploring something with your magical sense, and see how you can open your mind in that way in the experience. In Denmark there's this nature therapist called Thomas Lasse Edlev, and he talks about 4 dimensions of experiencing nature. And this is to experiencing it rationally, or sensory, embodied, like we just said, or imaginatively, or then spiritually. And we will explore these in an activity later on. The process then of these fairy trails, we used the hero's journey format, and in that sense made 10 different steps. We didn't use them like strictly in that sense, but sort of like this process of going on a journey and coming back, solving a problem and going over the threshold to the magical world. So we made these stories about Professor Vilda Vide. Well, the plan is to make 4, because we want a fairy trail for each season, so the activities can be grounded in what's possible to do in nature in that season. So the first story that we wrote was about a frozen spring, and how she solved the mystery of the frozen spring. And you can see here the problem was Brimner, a mountain troll who was angry. Then they had to step over the magic threshold, and then goes the journey around that, and they solve the problem finally. Jump to the next one. This was the summer story. So Professor Vilda Vide and the legend of the dragon fire. So here she rescues 2 prince brothers from a little evil wizard. This is the same kind of process then with the hero's journey format. And actually today this one is released. It's Professor Vilda Vide and Carlos Leaves. And this is of course then about autumn story, where there's something about leaves and how you can work with leaves, or there's this mystery around them. And the activities then has a lot to do with leaves. That was a short presentation about the development of the fairy trails and what they are. I'm hoping now to spend the rest of the time with you with some exercises. So I'll take you now into the forest to lose your mind and find your soul, to cite John Moore from the 1800s. So before we start this exercise then, please take the object from nature that you have probably chosen by now. We will do this exercise to build perspective taking, and this was one thing that we wanted to include also in these fairy trails. And this is also because the world is actually always neutral, but we make meaning of it. And our brains perceive and interpret the world through our sensory perceptions, preconceptions, and biases, seasoned with our emotional reactions, often triggered by something in our subconscious mind. Hence, no one experiences things exactly the same. And we are meaning-making beings, building our stories to make sense of things. And this is something we can build on to co-create in the fairy trails. To understand this better, we will do an activity based on this Danish nature therapist, Thomas Lassedle, which I talked about, and the 4 dimensions of experiencing nature. And I will guide you in this process, and you just have to go along and shift your perspective accordingly. Then, if you hold your object in your hand, you can jump into the first, which is the rational experience. Examine your chosen object carefully. Describe the object to yourself using descriptive and scientific terminology. For instance, the object's official name, the height, the width, its seasonal process, if there is one. Maybe even its molecular structure, if you know something about that. Names of different parts of the object. Keep on going and let your logical mind explore what you can find about this object in different ways. This is approaching it as a scientist, trying to understand everything about it, but also maybe how you could teach about it to other people. How would you describe it to somebody else? And continue this examination for a while. Notice something about your own experiences in this process. Now you can close your eyes and take a few relaxed breaths. Sit comfortably and just breathe and relax for a while. Try to empty your mind of this perspective that you just took. And for the next perspective, you can keep your eyes closed and then just start by exploring the object with your hands only. Use your fingertips. Feel the texture, the form, and the shape. Here we move from our left brain of words and logic to our right brain of non-verbal experience of form and touch and feel. The spatial experience. But you can also use your eyes and smell and all the senses that you have. And experience the object through all your sensory channels, one at a time. And here you can reflect on how you would experience the world with your senses only, with no words. Okay, so now we move to the next one, and before that, take a few relaxed breaths again and try to empty your mind again from this experience. And we're going to move to the imaginative experience. Here you can open your eyes and this time use your imagination as your frame of reference. This is where your meaning making meets your fantasy. For instance, you can imagine how you would experience the object if you were a small ant and the object was huge in comparison. How would your sensory experience be if you were this small ant? And how would your small feet feel on its surface? You can choose whichever perspective you want. This was just an example. But what is the story that is beginning to build in your mind about this object, which your fantasy is bringing you on? Play around with this story for a while and see where it takes you. One more time, close your eyes and take a few relaxed breaths and empty your mind again. We will move into the last and fourth experience perspective, and this is the spiritual experience. For this perspective, we will use our emotions of awe and wonder. Notice the beauty of the object. See all the details from an aesthetic perspective. Look at the object as a piece of art created by Mother Earth as the artist for the purpose of you to enjoy. See the object as part of a larger ecosystem of which you also are part. Realize that you and the object are both made of atoms and stardust. Make sure you sit comfortably and hold or touch the object. Close your eyes and tune into your heart sense and explore the heart connection to the object. Notice your emotions. How do you feel part of something greater than just you as a person are? You are connected to nature and part of the evolution of everything. Getting a glimpse of this place and time as one fractal of moments in the history of the universe. Feel how you, through the emotion of awe and wonder, build a relationship with the object at this time and place in the universe. You will probably remember this moment and that you and your object are forever connected. Okay, welcome back. Was it difficult, easy to change perspective? Did you get any aha moments? Well, this is something that we have tried also to include and kind of mix the different activities we do and nudge them to do in these fairy trails, so they get all these kinds of experiences of nature to build a broader dimension of how you can connect to nature, and that it's not only the names of the trees or something like that, it's much more than that. And I have from this another exercise that I would like you to come with me on, and that's about for you to start to make your own fairy trail. And we will use this sort of steps doing this, and we'll see where it takes us and see how much time we have to sort of get somewhere. But the first thing I'll ask of you is to think of something you played when you were a child, and something that you remember that was especially fun, that you remember from your childhood. And you can use a piece of paper or something to write it down. I can also tell you that this Vilda Vide, the Professor Vilda Vide, she's actually based on one of my own plays when I was a little child, where I used to run around and make mysteries in nature, and also a Norwegian children's show that I used to watch in the 70s or 80s. I can't remember which it was. I was born in the 70s anyway. So, and it's called, maybe some of you have seen it, it's called Bröderna Dahl och Professor Drövels hemlighet. Does anybody know that one? Yes? 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 I loved that when I was a kid, and the mystery of not finding him and all of this. It was really nice. So this is the background that I have also, and how I used that for playing when I was a child. That's sort of also the background to the fairy trails. So your task now to find something that you have played when you were a kid. I put in the chat here now questions based on the Hero's Journey Process by Joseph Campbell. And you can copy that into a document, a Word document for instance, and just start to add something. Take your play that you have selected, something you played, and then try to start to make this story process based on it. And you can skip steps if you find these are not suitable for this, or you can make more steps if you want to. Just use these questions as triggers, if you like, and see how they can take you and build this fairy trail for yourself. And you can, of course, use your imagination and play with it and see how you find different paths than what you did in childhood, and you create new ones. And you can also implement these perspectives that we just practiced and try to see how you can include them in different way in how to use nature in this fairy trail. Let's say about 5 minutes.
Welcome to this first work.